Perfect. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Can you see that? No, my presentation. Yes. All right. Thank you. I have three screens in front of me. I'm used to doing these things from home. I usually get the question of, where are you, Todd? This is my library at my house in my office. I did a lot of work here in the last year or so, but this program here is something that I did because I had two high school students here in the recent past. One has gone off to college. The other one went straight into the workforce. And I left school without any debt back in the early 90s. And I tried to teach my children a way to do that as well. So this is a combination of what I've learned over the years, as well as the many classes and counseling services that we do here at Tenfold. So we're going to do a quick overview. We're going to do what types of aid are available. How can I apply for the grants, scholarships, the FAFSA, FIA, match savings? What are these things? How can I pay for college? Responsible borrowing, understanding some credit, depending on time. We'll get into some of that, and then of course, throughout this workshop, if you have any questions, by all means, you can either put them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and just let me know what the questions are. My goal isn't to get through the content as quickly as possible. It's to answer any questions you may have in the process. So, typical things that we normally see out there for different types of aid that's available. Obviously, the first one is free, and that's the best kind, the kind I like. These could be grants or scholarships, which are free money and doesn't need to be repaid. So those are the things that you want to obviously strive to look for first. For most folks, unless you're getting a sizable scholarship or a specific scholarship for sports or academics or other things, then they're probably on the lower side or smaller side. And so you may have to get multiple of them to be able to make a dent in the actual costs for school. Then there's obviously student employment, and this changes from campus to campus, but you can do part-time and or full-time jobs, work-study jobs, which allows the student to be able to earn money while staying on campus. So transportation isn't usually a huge issue for them at that point. And then, of course, a lot of people know student loans, which is money that has to be repaid over several years, usually with interest, if not paid before or shortly after graduation. So those ones obviously are a needed part for many folks to be able to go to school and to be able to finish school. And we're going to get into a little bit more with the student loans as we go through. Also, we have savings. And that's an obvious one as well, that some folks have been saving for their son or daughter for years, like since they were born, and others never got that off the ground. But a 529 program is something that can be a plan that can be used to pay towards tuition, or you can prepay tuition up front so you get a lower rate. But again, those are things that you have to start sooner than someone who's 10th, 11th, 12th grade. Match savings program, and there's more to come on that one. Military student aid like ROTC and the GI Bill, where you can earn money for education in exchange for service in the U.S. Armed Forces. I tried to do that when I was in high school and was not able to do it because of my asthma. But I know many folks that I went to college with that were able to pay for most, if not all, of their schooling by using these services. So it's an option on the table. It's not for everyone, but I always like to let people know that it's available. So side note, the only one of those we really can control is savings. How we save, how often we save, the process of saving. But it's really the only one that's within our control to be able to do that. Most people I ran into when I was in banking no one really thought that savings was a bad idea, but most people just didn't get started. And savings is a long-term game. If you're going to save for something like schooling or even a vacation, you usually need to start with some time beforehand. You can't just do one lump sum. So the longer you can save, even if it's smaller amounts, it starts to add up over time. So the longer you can prepare for something like this, the better. And even some organizations will pay you to save, so they'll match your savings. These match savings programs, you can make more than any financial institution is willing to pay you, like in a savings account or a certificate of deposit. Tenfold does have a program that students that are 18 or older, I'm working on getting that actually taken down to 16, possibly 17. But right now it's 18 or older. They can apply, and if they're below the 80% of the median income, not household income, just their income, and they're able to save, if they save $1,000 over a 6 to 24 month period, we'll match that 2 to 1. So if they save $1,000, we're going to give them $2,000 for free. And so they'll have a total of $3,000 towards either buying a car, furthering other education, starting a business, or buying a home. So in this case, I have a lot of folks that are high school age that they would be looking to buy that car or putting it towards school. These get sent to, the check gets sent directly to either the school or to the car dealership, wherever applies to them. It does have some restrictions. They do have to go to so many workshops like this. They have to go to do counseling. And of course, they need to show that they're saving over time. Again, we're going back to the best type of what things to do is free. And those are those grants and scholarships. Some are based on your financial need, between the cost between your ability to pay and what the costs are. Some funds are based on your academics, or artistic, or athletic, or merit, or skill activities. Here's just some. When I pulled up the list of the different scholarships, there was one out there to create a prom costume out of duct tape. A scholarship for left-handed students. I think it was like $500. Starfleet members. So if you like watching Star Trek and you go online and become a Starfleet member, I think you have to be a member for so long, but then there's a grant that they give you. A scholarship for students with the last name Zolp. So there are hundreds of different types of scholarships. They may not all apply to you, obviously, but it's something that you can look at and say, okay, does any of these fit? And when you go to some of these websites, one of them is FastWeb, is just one option here. But this slide shows a whole bunch of other options that are out there. And there seems to be more newer things coming out, it seems like every year. But these are just a few of the places that are available that you can go to, and you can filter out. Just like if you're shopping and you want to see all of the shoes under $50, you can sort it. You can sort this out, that it's by Lancaster County or by Pennsylvania or by your income level or by whatever you want to put in there. So there's different ways that you can go in, enter in, to be able to find different scholarships that would apply to you. So you don't have to waste time going through hundreds or thousands of them. You can just go through the ones that would apply to your situation. So I'm going back here. So the site matches your personal background characteristics that you enter in. You don't have to put in social security numbers or date of birth or anything like that. You're just going to put in some other types of filters that are going to put maybe your income level, where you are located, where you're looking to go to school. Again, and it put all those in, and then it checks the large database of scholarships, and then it will see only the ones that may apply to you. It seems like there are always going to be some that pop up that just don't still apply to you, but they come through. So you do have to sift through a little bit. FastWeb is a database that's updated daily with automatic email notifications, if you want those, of new awards that match your profile. So this is just one. I just picked one out of the group. to just say, and these are in no specific order. So I don't know of any of them that one is this much greater than another. One other resource that I used a lot when I was in school, and I highly recommend, is the team that's at your high school. Those folks will have the most current information, and they'll have different scholarships that are available just maybe to your school or your area. So you always want to make sure that you're following up with them as well. And that's, I just got ahead of myself. Your guidance counselor might post information about scholarships outside his or her office or on the school website. Some of them publicize those scholarships in a school bulletin or distribute them in scholarship booklets. If not, ask for a list. When I've worked with the folks at your school district, most of them have been very forthcoming that they've sent out the information for all kinds of different scholarships in various different ways to students as well as the parents. But it never hurts to ask. Maybe something didn't just make it to its destination. You can also find them in books and special online databases at public libraries. There's library resources that are only for folks that go to a library. There's a database that I go and look at every once in a while at the Lancaster Library because they're only things that I can find on that database. So that can be a great resource as well. You want to start searching as soon as possible. I've had folks that have a student in elementary school that has won a scholarship for a paper they wrote about fire prevention or different contests that might be out there. You can't really start too early, but you want to look at the scholarship to make sure that there's certain guidelines where it has to be used by a certain time period. But you can win certain awards anywhere from kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. And you can actually apply for scholarships after you've graduated while you're in school or thinking about going to school. After you locate the scholarships, you need to submit an application. Before it was writing all kinds of letters and mailing it over here and there. Most of these you're going to do online. So if you have online access, that's huge. Many scholarships require that there might be a written essay, a short essay, letters of recommendation, high school transcripts. If you become a finalist, some scholarships will conduct in-person or telephone, probably Zoom, interviews as well. Some of the candidates that way. If you win the scholarship, the sponsor will hold the money until you enroll in college. They will then send the check to his or her college to cover the costs that are there that have been incurred. Some scholarships are renewable, where they can be like $500 a year for all 4 years. And some, it's a once and done. You get a lump sum, it's $500 and that's it for the first year. Often you'll need to keep your grades up. There's usually a minimum for a lot of them that especially if it's a scholarship or it's one of the scholarships that's multi-year, you usually have to have a certain level of grades for them to continue to give you that benefit. You might also need to have community involvement. I know my one son, he had to do so many hours of community service in order to continue to qualify for one of the grants that he received when he went to Thaddeus Stevens. This is one of the most important steps in the process. You have to submit the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, online at www.fafsa.ed.gov to apply for need-based grants, loans, and work study. Almost any college that I've seen is going to ask you, one of the first things they're going to ask you is if you've applied for federal student aid. If you have not, they're probably going to direct you to do it, or they may assist you in doing it. And this time of year is usually when folks are thinking about doing their tax return. This is also a good time to do that because everything you need to fill this form out online is on your taxes. So if you do your taxes this weekend, you can turn around and do this form almost immediately, and you'll have all the information that they're going to ask for. So it makes it really convenient if you have those taxes nearby when you do this. Um, it is used to calculate your expected family contribution, or EFC, a measure of your family's ability to pay for college. A lower EFC makes you eligible to receive more need-based financial aid, such as federal Pell Grants. Financial need equals cost of attendance. Students with a lower EFC qualify for more financial aid. Students with zero, mostly students with family income less than 30,000, have full financial need and qualify for even more financial aid to help them pay for school. So this is an important step in the process to be able to find out where you fall on that spectrum for this financial aid. Then on top of that, once you file for the federal version, then there's a state version, and it's FEA, Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency. On the confirmation page for the FAFSA, there will be a link at the bottom that start your state application, and that will take you directly to the Pennsylvania grant form, and you can fill it out. Again, it makes the easy process. Take the time, do everything all at once, and then you'll have all that documentation you need to be able to move forward. For FEA, for the state one, obviously you need to be a PA resident, be a graduate of a approved high school, the receipt of a GED, or have completed an approved homeschool program, attend an eligible post-secondary school, not be in default on any federal student loans, and that one has been a kicker for some folks. I've had them come in and they wanted to go back to school now, but they've defaulted on a student loan, a federal one. They cannot apply until that is brought current, or at least renegotiated, so it doesn't show that it's in default. You have to file the federal version before you file the PA version, meet the minimum enrollment status requirements of the program, and maintain satisfactory academic progress for the program of study. Beware of any type of scholarships. There's scams everywhere nowadays. Beware of scholarships where they're guaranteeing you that you're going to get approved. That's one of the biggest ones that I see, is that they said, if I send this money in, I'll be guaranteed this much more money. So they told me I just have to send this $100 in as an application fee, but then I'm going to get $10,000 in scholarships. And long and behold, they don't end up getting that, and they're out there $100 or worse. Sometimes they'll say they get you a full ride for some Ivy League school, which could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and all you need to do is give them $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. I don't invest more than a postage stamp for information about scholarships, and you don't even need to do that in most cases because you can do them online. If you have to pay money, it's probably a scam. I'd probably change that to, it is definitely a scam if you have to pay something to do it up front. And don't give out your social security number, your bank account number, your credit card number, or your debit card number to any type of scholarship providers. It is not a scholarship provider that's asking for that information. It's some sort of fraud or scam. Then they're trying to get as much information as they can about you. So I'm going to stop there for a second. I apologize. I haven't been looking in the chat box. So let me see here.
Nothing in the chat so far. Any questions from anyone?
And thank you, Jeremy, for putting that in there for the local scholarships. All right. Well, this one here, like I said, we would talk a little bit more about the student loans. There's direct loans for undergraduate and graduates looking for some sort of degree. And then there's direct subsidized loans. On a direct loan, and then there's direct subsidized loans. This is the federal government will pay the interest for undergraduate study while you're in school during the grace period. So if you're a freshman in college and you get a student loan for $5,000, then you're not going to pay any interest on that if it's a direct subsidized loan while you're in school, while you're considered to be a student. So as soon as that designation changes and you're not a student anymore, then is usually a grace period about 6 months in most cases. And then you would need to start making payments and interest would be accruing. So technically, if you were to get a student loan your freshman year and work during the summers and paid that off before you graduated, you wouldn't have paid any interest on that type of loan. Direct loans would have interest. The subsidized ones would have don't have any interest until afterwards. And then direct unsubsidized loans are you are responsible for the interest from the date the loan is dispersed. So if you get it again in your freshman year, interest is going to be accruing all 4 years of college or all 2 years of college, including interest that accrues during payments of periods of deferment or forbearance. So interest is still accruing when you're not making those payments. But I have some folks that said, well, the interest per month on my loan is like $30. If you want to make those payments of the interest payments while you're in school, at least when you graduate, you won't owe more than what you started with. But yeah, that's just one option that some folks have done to be able to ease that part of the process. So that grace period, that's the amount of time during the borrower is not required to make any payments, typically 6 months after your designation as a student changes. The grace period begins the day after the student drops below half-time status and ends the day before repayment begins. However, not all loans have a grace period. So have some extra cash again, like I said, during college. I know that's a stretch for most folks to have extra cash, but if you could put something towards your loans while you're in school, you'll thank yourself later, especially if the interest is accruing during that time. The Direct Plus loans for parents. It's a Direct Plus loan for parents is generally the best loan for parents who want to help their student with their education. Undergraduate students, parents may borrow the cost of attendance minus all financial aid, and repayment begins after the loan is fully dispersed. Parents may defer payments while the student is in school. However, the interest does accrue on this style of loan. Having some student loan debt is not a bad thing. I don't want it to sound like when I'm going through all these that don't get any student loans, they're bad or evil. Student loans are necessary for most people to be able to pay and go to school and be able to graduate so they can go earn that income. But if you could, they actually help establish credit. I know, again, for my son and myself, I got student loans when I was in school. He got student loans when he was in school. It was just that we paid them off before we graduated. That's not going to be the case for everyone, especially with the dollar amounts being so large for some schools. But anything you can pay down while you're in school, the better off you'll be. The key is not to go too far in debt. And we're going to go into that a little bit more here as we move forward, because there's a big part where you want to make sure that the schooling that you're going to go for is actually worth what you're spending on it. So we'll get into that a little bit more here on this slide here. I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go to this website. I'm going to unshare for a moment. All right. I'm going to All right. So this website here, I highly recommend. It's www.mysmartborrowing.org. You can actually go in and hit find out now here on this button. I'm just going to continue as a guest. I'm going to say I'm 11th, 12th grade. And so I'm going to just pick a school. We have some schools in the local area. So I want to go to Millersville. Oh, this is the career one. Sorry. I want to be I'm going to put in teacher. Um, Hit continue. I guess it wants me to put in a specific one. Mathematics and science teacher. And I'm going to put down Pennsylvania. And I'm going to hit continue. I'm going to say that, well, let me ask, I don't know how many of you can get to the chat box, but out of curiosity, how much do you think your first year of college would cost at Millersville University?
Are you looking for total cost? Or are you looking for
Yeah, the
tuition
total.
and
Yeah,
housing?
I think that we could look for either one: tuition. Let's do the whole thing: tuition and housing for the
Probably about
whole.
25 or 26,000 a year.
Okay, so let's go in. Let's. I'll go on the conservative side. I'll put 20,000, and so we'll hit continue. So it's saying your starting salary, if you were a math/science teacher, post-secondary, you're talking around $58,000 would be your starting salary. Now, this is a guesstimate that's going to depend on what part of the country you're in when you get, and the school district and everything else. But it puts an average in here. So now it says, what college do you want to, or are you going to go to? And I'm going to put in yes. Now this is where it'll allow me to put Millersville in. And hit continue. And so net 0 to 30,000, that works. It's saying here in Jeremy or the folks here that are on staff, it's saying roughly about 86,000 for all 4 years. For someone that's we have teachers at the school and everything else. Does that sound reasonable to anyone on here like yourself, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds about right,
Yep.
including room and board and everything.
Yep. So you're talking $86,000. That's a lot of money, but it shows that that your actual amount that you'll be making is mid to high 50s, which isn't too bad. So the difference between how much debt you'll have and how much you'll be making isn't too bad. But it goes one step further. How much money do you think you can get from your family? That's either your personal savings or the family has saved. And so I'm going to put in a low number. I'm going to put in $5,000 has been saved to go towards school. So that brings us from 86,000 to 81,000. So we hit here. It says average student loan amount for a 4-year public school is about 36,000. You're going to be closer to 81,000. So you look at the financial review here. It says you're over what it would recommend your borrowing limit by about 22,470. So it's counting the cost of what it will cost you to be a student and to do that education piece. And not saying that this just because it's in red doesn't make it like this is a horrible thing to do. It's just that you're counting the costs, and then what we haven't put in here is any type of financial aid. So if you were to get financial aid, this number would come down. If you got some scholarships, this number would come down. If you got any type of grants, this number would come down. So you might be able to, what this is telling you, you may want to make up around $22,000 in grants and scholarships, or more savings. But this is why I like this. It also down at the bottom gives you an estimate on how much it will cost you to pay this debt down after you graduate. It says $932 a month for 10 years. So that's a house payment for most people. So that's the thing. You have to count the cost now. I'm going to spend almost $1,000 a month to pay this debt down over 10 years after I get out of school. So I use this form here to just as an estimate. I'm not everything on here is going to be exactly that way once you go to do it. But I think it is super helpful to be able to see how this whole process works out. Now I'm going to try, I'm going to check a different one here. My son is a machinist. He went to Thaddeus Stevens to become a machinist. So hit continue. And then, of course, we're going to hit Pennsylvania. Hit continue. Um, any guesses on how much a machinist makes the first year out of college?
40,000?
We can put 40 in. It says 38,080. Now, with all the things going on in the economy right now, that's an extremely low number. Because Thaddeus Stevens, I think, had close to 50 graduates the year my son went through the program. And my son got 12 offers for jobs. So it was pretty simple to pick one because they were all well above this number because there's such short supply for folks that are in the field. So that's another thing that comes into play, asking some questions when you go to the schools to find out what things are in demand. So for school wise, I'm going to put in Stevens. Actually, obviously it's under Thaddeus. There we go. Thaddeus Stevens. And I'm just going to leave it there. College costs between 0 and 30,000. It costs 11,196 to go to 2 years of college at Thaddeus Stevens. I'm going to do a family contribution. I'm going to just put in $1,000. So it brings us just over 10,000. So we do the financial breakdown. You're talking $38,000 salary, which is like I said, I've seen it from firsthand. That's fairly low. The cost, it's saying that what you borrowed, you're under by almost $28,000, and to pay that off is $117 a month over 10 years, which is normal for the student loan debt. And this again does not include all the scholarships that are available that would bring this number down probably in half, depending on your situation. So I'm not showing this to say 4-year school or is bad. My son was looking that he might go back and become an engineer, but now he walked away with little to no debt, and he was able to get a job paying well. And now the job he's in, if he wants to go back to school, which he has debated, they will pay for him to go back to school. But even if they didn't, he would have income now to be able to pay for schooling. So I just throw it out there that, again, here's two options. I like this website to just try ideas for different things that your son or daughter may be looking at doing career-wise. If they're fixated on just one thing, then that's obviously we want to look at that one priority. But if there's 2 or 3 different directions, there's someone who likes math, science, STEM related things, there's a lot of different directions you can go. And counting the cost beforehand will allow you to be able to not come and have this unmanageable debt on the back end. So I'm going to stop there and just see if there's any questions, because this is basically all of the slides I have, all the information I have on the student loan and grant side. And then I just do want to touch on credit, because I think it's super important as students are going to school to just have a few slides to talk about that. Okay, I did get a question here. What are typical interest rates? This one on here shows an average rate of about 6.8. I've seen higher than that, actually quite a bit higher than that. and I've not seen much lower than that. I'd say between 5 and 10% is fairly common. I don't know if Jeremy or anyone else at the
Yeah.
school, if you've seen anything different.
So one kind of unexpected benefit of the pandemic has been that interest rates are very, very low. So they're about half of that right now. They're about as low
Perfect.
as they've ever been. So I know they're creeping back up, but I think it's about 3.5%. Alejandro, I don't know if you know off the top of your head exactly what that number is. I would need to double check. But they're quite low right now, which is certainly beneficial for students. So it's, if you're gonna, they're certainly, I know they're like half of when I went. So they're pretty reasonable at the moment.
Yeah, when I went to school, they were in the ones and twos. And so, yeah, when my son went, they were in the sevens and eights. And so they've come down. The Federal Reserve is raising rates this year. They've already projected that they'll probably raise rates every quarter this year. Those don't have a direct effect on these rates. It's more about demand, but those rate increases will indirectly raise these rates over time. So if they're low right now, that's great news. Any other questions there? Thanks, Nick, for the question there.
I did confirm they're 3.73% right now. That'll probably go up for next academic year.
Okay. That's good to know. Good.
I see that Alejandra added a link there to Lancaster Dollars for Higher Learning, and they provide interest-free loans just for Lancaster County residents. So that's a highly recommended resource. Because if you got to take out loans anyway, you might as well not pay interest for it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and that's what I look at. If I'm going to first, I'm going to look at free, and then if there's a way that I can get the money that it's at least interest free, that's a huge help because as those interest rates increase, it's going to become more and more challenging. So no, that's excellent. So I'm just going to touch base on. Let's see here. I've got I'm going to go over 2 slides, and then I'll be done with my presentation here because I really like to touch on with, like I said, credit. So I'm going to share my screen for this one here. I always like to go over because I know a lot of folks they have credit, but don't really understand how it breaks down. And especially when someone's 18 years old and they're just starting with credit, this is an important thing for them to know that 35% is your credit history. And they're usually looking very closely at your last 2 years of history. This obviously could affect whether or not you can get certain student loans, especially like the Parent Plus loans. So the payment history is 35%, 30% is how much you owe. If you have a credit card that has a $1,000 limit and you have a balance more than $300 on it, then you're negatively impacting your credit score. Anytime you have more than 30% of what you can borrow on your credit lines, more than 30% of that, then it negatively impacts your credit score. It may be 2 or 3 points a month, but it does negatively impact you the longer you carry that balance. Now, that doesn't apply to things like a student loan because they're not revolving. Revolving credit would be a line of credit or a credit card, which a lot of people use nowadays, and it does not have anything to do with your debit card. But 65% of your score is how much you owe and how long you've had it. And then the rest of it, the 15, 10, and 10, is going to be the length of time you've had that credit history, the types of credit, and how much of it is actually new, like within the last 3 to 6 months. So I think explaining this to adults as well as teenagers, students, is a huge thing because I remember getting on campus back in the 90s, and the first day I was there was a bank there handing out credit cards to freshmen. Fill this out, and we'll give you a credit card. And so I was a freshman with a $3,000 credit card limit, and I didn't even have a job at the time. So yeah, that ended up not being the greatest experience for me. But there's a lot of places out there that they take advantage of students not knowing what the process is and why you should or should not be using this credit card in those manners. So in the other slide that I want to show is this one here, because it changes, but it's right now, if you have a credit score of 740 or above, it's considered excellent, above average. You're getting the best rates and terms on any type of loan products, as long as your income can afford whatever you're looking to borrow. 680 to 739 is good. And this is average to good risk, and you get very little rate and term increases. So that 741, maybe they're getting 3%. At 680, you're getting 3.5. At 620 to 679. So a lot of people, that's below average. And so I have a lot of folks that are in that 620 to 679 that think they have good credit because they can get approved for things. You're getting approved, but there's usually more restrictions, and you're paying a premium in your rate in your term, that you're going to end up paying more over time. Each time this goes down, you're paying more to the bank or whatever other place, the financial institution that's holding that credit card or loan. And then 580 to 619 is considered poor credit. Below average, there's even more restrictions. And then again, there's more premium to the rate and the term. So when I say premium on the rate and term, someone at 740 score and they're looking to buy a car, they might be able to do financing for 8 years. And they might get 0% interest or 1.9 or something like that. And then that 681, they're going to go, well, you can't get that 8-year financing, but you could get 5-year financing. And your rate is going to be like in the 4s and 5s maybe. And then that 620, your rate is going to go up again, maybe in the 6s and 7s. If you're lucky, it might even as much as double digits. But the term, they might not go more than 4 years. And then the 580 to 619, they may not even give you a loan. But if they do, there's going to be a heavy amount of the rate being double digits and the term probably 3 years or less. What that does to you is each time you go down, the shorter the term, the much higher your payment is. And the amount of interest that you pay over the life of that loan is going to jump dramatically. And yeah, if you're below the 580 range, for most places, you're not lendable. Most banks and financial institutions, they won't lend to you. Your only options are usually the buy here, pay here, or the rent to own options that you see out there with those different types of organizations that do that. And those rates and fees are even more extreme than it would be at that 580 to 619. Again, and I'll leave you with this story. When I was in high school, my mom took me to the bank and she opened a checking account in my name. And I say it that way because I had nothing to do with it. I just sat there and I signed the paperwork at the end, and I walked out with a checkbook and a checking account that I didn't know anything about. And a few weeks later, I went to the pizza place where I lived in New Hampshire, and I decided to write a check. Well, I wrote out the check wrong, and the pizza guy started yelling at me. He tore up my check and threw it back in my face like confetti. And he took the checkbook from me. He wrote the check out correctly, and then I signed it. And the reason I've told that story hundreds and hundreds of times is don't let the pizza guy teach you how to do banking and finances. He wasn't a good teacher. I can guarantee you that. And I didn't write checks for probably a year after that because I didn't want to look foolish again. But it's one of those type of things that usually if it's a parent, friend, relative, neighbor, the people at the local bank, at school, find resources that someone that you're comfortable with that can help you through this process. But there's a lot of people out there that have opinions on these financial things, and they may or may not be true. So I'll just leave you with that. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. All right. I don't see any